It was a quiet night in downtown Chicago. The glass towers shimmered like frozen stars, and the streets glowed beneath the faint orange hue of flickering streetlights. Inside one of those skyscrapers, the headquarters of a billion-dollar corporation, sat Richard Hale, a man who had everything money could buy, but nothing his heart truly needed. His name was known in business circles across the country, a symbol of power, precision, and ruthless success. Yet that night, as the last employees clocked out and silence settled in, something, or rather someone, caught his attention through the surveillance monitor that flickered on his desk. On the screen was the image of an old janitor, shoulders hunched, pushing his mop down the marble hallway long after everyone else had gone home. His name was Samuel Brooks, quiet, invisible, and seemingly ordinary. But what caught Richard's eye wasn't the janitor's work. It was what he saw Samuel do after his shift. The old man didn't take the elevator or the cab provided for late-night workers. He walked through the cold, through the rain, through the dark, every single night, as if going somewhere secret. And for reasons even he couldn't explain, the CEO suddenly felt compelled to find out why. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroes that walk among us, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness of Americans. Your one click helps us share more true stories of compassion that the world desperately needs to hear. The next evening, Richard left his corner office early and followed Samuel from a distance. The janitor didn't notice him. He walked the same quiet route again, passing through dim alleys and abandoned playgrounds until he reached a small, aging church at the edge of the city. Richard hid behind a parked car, watching. The old man entered through the side door, his figure illuminated for a moment by the flickering light of a stained glass window. Curious and unsettled, the CEO crept closer and peeked through the narrow gap of the door. Inside, the pews were filled with children, perhaps 15 or 20, all wearing second-hand clothes, their laughter echoing softly in the candlelit space. Samuel was there among them, unpacking small lunchboxes, pouring warm soup into cracked bowls, handing each child a meal with care and patience, as if serving royalty. The CEO watched in stunned silence as the janitor took out a small envelope from his pocket and slipped it into the offering box. Later, Richard would learn that Samuel donated half of his meager paycheck every month to support those orphans, kids who had no one else in the world. The following days became a blur of disbelief and reflection. Richard couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. He tried to go about his routine, meetings, reports, deals, numbers, but something inside him had changed. His luxury now felt hollow, his penthouse colder. Every morning, when he saw Samuel sweeping the floors with quiet dignity, he felt a pang of guilt and admiration he couldn't describe. How could a man who earned so little give away so much? And how could he, a man with more than enough, feel so empty? One night Richard stayed late again. The office was silent except for the faint squeak of Samuel's cart wheels. The CEO approached him, not as a boss, but as a man seeking truth. He asked softly why Samuel did what he did. Samuel looked startled at first, then smiled, a tired, gentle smile that carried decades of quiet pain and resilience. He spoke of losing his wife long ago, of the promise he'd made on her deathbed to always care for children who had no one. He said he didn't have much, but he had hands that could work and a heart that could give. That was enough. That night, Richard went home and wept, not out of pity, but realization. He had spent his entire life chasing success, while this humble man had found purpose. For days, he couldn't sleep. His thoughts drifted to those children, the way they laughed, the way their eyes glowed when Samuel served them, and he knew he couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning he visited the same church. The priest recognized him instantly, unsure why a man of such stature had come there. Richard offered no speeches, no grand gestures. He simply asked how he could help. Within weeks, the corporation quietly began funding the orphanage under a new initiative. No media, no publicity, no cameras. Samuel never asked for recognition, and Richard wanted to honor that. But he did something even more meaningful. He promoted Samuel to manage a new division called Hearts of Hope, a program designed to help underprivileged children through education, shelter, and love. The old janitor protested at first, saying he was not fit for such a title, but Richard smiled and told him, "You've been leading with your heart all along. Now it's time the world knows." And for the first time in decades, Samuel's eyes filled with tears he couldn't hold back. He accepted, not out of pride, but gratitude, that his small acts of kindness had inspired change on a scale he could never imagine. Months later, the once quiet church overflowed with laughter, music, and hope. The orphanage expanded, more children found homes, and even employees across the company began volunteering every week. The building that once symbolized wealth now radiated compassion. And every year on Christmas Eve, the CEO and the janitor stood side by side, serving food to children together. No suits, no hierarchy, just two men with different lives but one shared heart. Richard's life transformed. His mansion became less of a fortress and more of a home. He started a scholarship program in honor of Samuel's late wife, and the man who once measured success in profits began measuring it in smiles. Years later, when Samuel passed away peacefully in his sleep, the news spread quietly but profoundly. Hundreds gathered at his funeral. Children he had fed, workers he had inspired, and a CEO who owed him a new purpose. Richard placed a single white rose on his casket and whispered a promise, to continue what Samuel had started, to live not for wealth, but for worth. And so he did. The Hearts of Hope Foundation grew nationwide, feeding thousands of children every year. But at every event, there was always one empty chair with a small plaque on it, reserved for Samuel Brooks, the man who taught us what it means to give. As years passed, people forgot the details, who funded what, who managed which program, but they never forgot the janitor who gave half his paycheck to orphans. His story became a quiet legend, a reminder that sometimes the smallest lives leave the biggest footprints. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. Your engagement helps us bring more real stories of compassion, humility, and hope to the world.